Today we will be talking about observability in microservices. This is the part 3 of the Polyglot microservice architecture based full stack development, and in this we will be discovering what observability is with the help of Serilog, Grafana, OpenTelemetry, Jaeger, Prometheus and Grafana Loki. So the full orchestration of observability in microservices. So as you know, we are in this journey where we are developing this application based on microservice architecture, and we are discovering different areas of implementation. We already covered Identity Server, OpenID Connect and OAuth 2. The start is where we are going to talk about Serilog, Jaeger, Grafana Loki and so observability is a property of a system that enables you to understand its internal state based on the output it produces. It helps in monitoring, troubleshooting and optimizing the system. And observability is built on three main pillars, which is metrics, logs and traces. Now these pillars provide different types of insight into a system on how it is behaving and how to take an action if required to mitigate any issues. So as you mentioned, the three pillars are metrics, logs and traces. Metrics are numerical measurements that represent the state or performance of a system over the time, and its example being your CPU usage, memory consumption, latency and error rates. The tools which we can use to cover this metric is Prometheus. It collects and stores the time series data of the application or the server, and Grafana visualizes the metrics through dashboard and graphs for the user to interpret the result. The logs are record of discrete events that happen within your system. They provide detailed context about the operations and the issues in your system as per your logging which you have implemented. And examples being your application logs, system logs, access logs. And the tools which we can use to accomplish this are Serilog, which generates log within your application. Grafana Loki is one of the stores and also it helps in indexing the logs. And Grafana is again for visualizing and exploring the logs of the Grafana Loki. Traces represents the end of the end-to-end journey of a REST request through a system from start to end, what all has happened, helping you understand the flow and performance of the request across the services in microservices. And examples, the distributed trace of microservice request, latency and breakdown of the services by services. The tools which we use in this mostly are like OpenTelemetry, which collects the traces and metrics, and Jaeger to visualize the metrics. Why is observability important? It is used for four main things, which is monitoring health, troubleshooting issues, optimize performance and improve reliability. Monitoring health, it continuously monitors the health and the performance of the application and the infrastructure. Troubleshooting, it identifies and diagnoses issues within your system. And optimize performance, it gains insight into your system performance on which all areas are not working fine and to identify the opportunity for optimization. And also it improves the reliability, increasing the stability of a system by proactively addressing potential issues. How will we implement observability now? Since we know that it is pretty good and it helps us in making the system reliable, is through metric collections. Now metric collection in your system can be instrumented by exposing metrics using Prometheus client libraries. The collect and store metrics using Prometheus and visualize metrics through a Grafana dashboard. Log collection, we need to implement a Serilog or any similar implementation. In our case, we'll be doing Serilog to generate logs within our application. We'll store the logs in the Grafana Loki and we'll visualize using Grafana. Now tracing we will use the OpenTelemetry hotel protocol. We will collect and visualize traces with Jaeger and integrate the traces with metrics and logs for comprehensive view. We will be seeing the whole trace as it works through, where it happens in the application through Jaeger. So this is the setup we will be implementing in our system for the application book by board. We will be having Serilog and we will have Grafana Loki for the logs, and Grafana will be used for observing the logs visualization and exploring that. And we have OTel or OpenTelemetry for tracing, and Jaeger will be the place where we'll be seeing the trace, how is it coming. Prometheus will be for metrics generation, and we'll be seeing again the metrics in detail on Grafana. So let's get started. So here we are in the same code base which we have been using in the previous demo of authorization or user management. Now here we'll go ahead and add a new set of services which will include Grafana, Prometheus, Jaeger, and all the containers that we need. So we'll go ahead and add a particular set and add the Docker Compose file which will have different YAML files for all these services. So these are the supporting services, and this includes one Docker Compose file. I would not need a web config, so we'll leave this. So the Docker Compose file will have all these services, which is the Grafana. Grafana will be using a specific version, and it will have map to the port 3000. Jaeger will again run on it will depend on the Elasticsearch, and it will run on its collector will run on 44317, and it will be viewable on 16686. Elasticsearch is where I will be putting our logs, and the logs will be available will be pushed on a port 9200. Prometheus is something which we will be using for metrics, and here it will be running on 9090. And again we will have the Loki, which is our logs location, log save part, which will actually run on 3100. And these all Docker services will have its own config YAML file. So if we come here in the Grafana provisioning, we will have all the, for example, the sources of this Grafana. For the dashboard will be all these Jaeger, Prometheus, Loki, and Elasticsearch. We will have the dashboard configuration. Now we'll have two kinds of dashboard in Grafana. One will be your error dashboard, another one will be your performance dashboard. Now this is configurable. I'll be providing the GitHub link, but these are something which you can configure as per your liking. But this is the basic setup which will be present in add the Serilog into our application, that is the user management. We'll start with the API project and we'll implement the Serilog. So we'll go ahead and add a new folder called Observability into our application Book My Boat. Now in this we will add a class library. We'll just add it as a project, and we'll go ahead and include a class library, and we'll name it as observability. And this we will have three kinds as we saw in the slides. One is your logging, so we'll name it as a logger setup. Rename this as logger setup, and then create two more classes, one with metric setup and tracing setup. So let me add a class. This will be your metric setup, another one will be your trace setup. So we will be having individual libraries loaded in these, so tracing setup. So let's go ahead and undo that. Now in the logger setup we will be having a code specific to Serilog, but for that we need to add all the dependencies. So let me add the dependencies, manage package, and add all the dependencies here. These are set of dependencies added into the project. I will go ahead and add the related codes for the. So this is the logger setup code where we have initialized the logger, Serilog core logger, with the configuration and also bootstrapping it to the application. Now next is metric setup. In the metric setup we have added the code wherein we are getting the configuration object and then applying that hotel configuration and the basic binding or the wiring up, like a middleware we do in the .NET Core, right? Same way we have done the wiring up here. Now moving on to the tracing setup. In the tracing setup, we have initialized again the web application builder, and we are going ahead and reading the hotel configuration, and then on that basis we are applying and configuring the tracing. So this is the basic setup of the logging, metrics and tracing, and we'll go ahead and inject this class library into our whichever module which needs it. In our case, we'll be using it in the user management API module, and we're seeing how it works there. So in the user management program file, we'll go ahead and set up the logging. So let's do that. Set up logging, tracing, metrics, and in here we will go ahead and use the Verilog observability logger setup, and we will go ahead and initialize the builder. We will have to include that dependency in here. So let's go ahead and add that project. Reference. Okay. So we can probably remove this and just inject it. And same way we will add the tracing setup. Initialize, right, and then we will have the metric setup. So this will inject all the three implementations that we did in the previous walkthrough, and we'll go ahead and run this. But before that, we will be setting up the services based on our Docker Compose YAML, which will set up our Grafana, Jaeger, Elasticsearch, Prometheus and Loki. So let's go ahead and first run this Docker Compose YAML file. Here we'll run the Docker Compose up. If we start creating all those containers, and we can see that in our Docker Compose Docker desktop. So if you see here, we are getting all the services up and running. We have Grafana, which is running on 3100. We have Prometheus running on 9090, and we have Jaeger tracing on 16686, and we have our Elasticsearch running on 9200, and the Grafana itself is running on 3000. So let's go ahead and open these services. Now we'll go ahead in our user management API project, and we will add the required app settings into our app setting, writing it, and the hotel configuration. And we'll do some basic logging here. And all these methods. Username. This is some basic logging which we have done in our system. So we'll go ahead and run this application now. So our system comes up, and we'll go ahead and just get the users. So let me try executing this, and we are able to get our pre-configured user list. So we'll come back to our Docker desktop. We have this UI wherein we can launch it. So I'll go ahead and launch Prometheus, Jaeger and the Grafana because we're serious. So we'll go ahead and launch these Prometheus, Jaeger and Grafana. So in Prometheus, when we go, we just check the service discovery. We are able to navigate to our user management services, user management API service, which is on the target, which is running on localhost 515015, and it is collecting the metrics and all the details. In the Jaeger, we can go ahead and find the trace, and you see we were trying to get the users, and it is returning the data for the users. In Grafana, we have configured two dashboards, the performance dashboard and the error dashboard. We can first go to the performance dashboard. So in Grafana, we have loaded the data source Elasticsearch, and as you see, we had the performance dashboard showing up as the data. Similarly, we can see the other dashboard as well, which is errors dashboard. Since there was no error, there is nothing coming up here. So that is how you configure the basic dashboard for performance as well as for all the events that are happening in your application. So that was pretty much about how to configure logging, monitoring and tracing in your application. Hope you liked the video. If you liked the video, press like and subscribe to the channel. Have a nice day.